A warm tropical wind tore the sails of a small ship, on board of which was Kofi, an African eager for new adventures and travels. The ship was moving across the boundless ocean when suddenly a powerful storm hit the ship. Lightning flashed in the sky, the roar of thunder drowned out the screams of passengers, and the waves rose to threatening heights. The ship began to shake and sway under the onslaught of the elements, and soon it began to be thrown in different directions, like a toy. Kofi tried to stay on deck, helping other passengers, but soon realized that the situation was getting out of control. The explosive impacts of the waves on the sides of the ship tore it apart. Kofi saw the masts collapse, and the ship began to sink into the dark waters of the ocean. He rushed to the lifeboats, hoping that he would be able to escape. Around him were hundreds of girls traveling on the same ship, panicking, trying to find a way to escape. At the last moment, before the ship sank under the water, Kofi was able to grab onto a piece of wood that kept him afloat. He saw the girls around him, exhausted and scared, clinging to everything that could help them stay on the surface of the water. At dawn, Kofi woke up on the hot sand of the beach. His body was exhausted from fighting the waves, and his arms were worn out from desperate attempts to stay afloat. He looked around and realized that he was on the shore of an island. The remains of a ship, washed ashore by a storm, lay around. Kofi got to his feet and saw that there were also other survivors on the shore, the girls he had seen on board the ship. Slowly and with difficulty getting up, he moved along the beach, helping those who were still unconscious or in shock from what had happened. Kofi felt a growing sense of responsibility for these people. They were in the same situation as him and needed help. When all the survivors gathered together, they began to realize that what had happened was not a dream or a short-term disaster. Kofi gathered a group of girls, trying to organize them in order to take action and look for a way out of this situation.
We need to unite if we want to survive here. We have to explore the island, collect food and water, and see if there is anyone else here.
One of the girls, slim and confident, named Layla, approached Kofi, trying to figure out what to do next.
How can we do this? We have neither the tools nor the means to communicate with the outside world. Are we stuck here?
Kofi took a deep breath, realizing that all these questions were correct, but there were no answers to them. The only thing he could offer was to start small.
I do not know how long we will spend here, but one thing is for sure: if we do not act now, we may not wait for salvation. We need to explore the island and understand what is here.
From that moment, life on the island began. Kofi and Layla led a group of girls inland. They had to go through the dense thickets of the jungle, not knowing what lay ahead. The island seemed uninhabited. There were no traces of other people, and only wild nature stretched around. A few hours later, they came across a small river, which was a huge relief for everyone. The water was fresh and clean, which gave them hope that they would be able to hold out for a while. Next to the river, they found several fruit trees with mangoes and coconuts growing on them. It was a small consolation in their difficult situation. Kofi and Layla began to discuss how to assign responsibilities and what to do next. They understood that they had to organize life on the island as quickly as possible to ensure the survival of everyone. They began to distribute responsibilities among the girls. Someone was collecting food, someone was building shelters, and someone was lighting bonfires for cooking and protection from wild animals. The days on the island were spent in hard work. In the absence of outside help, the survivors relied only on their own strength. Kofi has become a true leader, guiding and supporting the girls, helping them with everyday tasks. The girls began to see in him not just a man who found himself in the same trouble with them, but a man capable of leading. A few weeks passed, and gradually life on the island began to find some kind of order. The girls, led by Kofi, built several primitive huts made of wood and foliage, created food supplies, and began exploring the island for resources. They set up a distress signal on the beach, hoping that one day some ship would spot them and rescue them. Despite all the difficulties, a society began to take shape on the island, where everyone depended on each other. But both Kofi and the girls understood that this was only a temporary solution, and that they were far from civilization, where every day was a struggle for survival. One day, when Kofi and Layla were patrolling the coast in search of new resources, Layla spoke thoughtfully.
I wonder how long we'll be here. The days seem to merge into one. I miss home, I miss civilization, but I'm also scared to come back.
Kofi, listening attentively, nodded. He understood her feelings because he had experienced similar emotions himself. But his mind remained focused on what needed to be done here and now.
You're right. The house seems out of reach now. But while we're here, we have to fight. This is our only chance.
Layla looked at Kofi respectfully, realizing how much support he had become for them all. Her gaze was full of gratitude, although she never said it out loud. A few more weeks have passed. The island became more and more familiar to them, and despite all the dangers and difficulties, everyone began to find their role in this new world. Kofi continued to guide and support all the survivors, although he began to realize that his position as a leader imposed a huge responsibility on him. Each girl expressed her gratitude to Kofi in her own way for being there for them and helping them in difficult moments. Gradually, they began to see him not just as a leader, but as their protector and mentor. However, Kofi felt increasingly distant from all these expressions of respect. He understood that he lacked a real connection, communication on a deep level, and that, despite his external well-being, he still remained alone on this island. Together with the girls, Kofi continued to look for a way out of their situation, exploring every part of the island in the hope of finding traces of civilization or other survivors. The island was huge, but so far they had not found anything that could help them get out of here. However, despite the physical difficulties, Kofi's inner struggle was even more difficult. He understood that he had to be strong for all these girls who saw him as a savior, but his own thoughts and feelings gradually went beyond simple survival. Every day it became clearer and clearer that on this island they would not only have to survive, but also learn to live in a new way. After several weeks of chaos and uncertainty on the island, the lives of the survivors began to take on some kind of order, and Kofi played a significant role in this. He was a man who was able to quickly take control of the situation, organize people, and begin to create at least the illusion of structure and stability in their new world. Each day began with planning, assigning responsibilities, and discussing what needed to be done to survive. Kofi understood that without a clear organization, it would be difficult for them to survive, and that a society should be created on the island where everyone would contribute. Initially, the girls were shocked by what happened, but gradually they began to realize that Kofi is the person who can help them adapt and survive in these difficult conditions. His determination and confidence attracted, and many began to rely on him not only as an organizer, but also as a support that keeps their world intact. One morning, when Kofi was gathering with a group of girls around an impromptu campfire, he began discussing the plan for the day. It was important to figure out the main tasks to get food, keep the fire going, build new shelters, and continue to explore the island for useful resources.
Today we need to strengthen our shelters. The weather can get worse at any moment, and our huts are not strong enough yet. You will also need to collect more fruits and look for fresh water sources away from the camp.
One of the girls, Nala, who has proven herself to be a leader among the others in recent weeks, stood next to him, ready to help with the assignment of tasks.
I can lead a group to search for water. We already know that there is another stream in the east of the island, but we haven't explored it completely yet.
Kofi nodded, knowing that Nala is one of those who is not afraid of work and can take responsibility.
Okay, take 3 more people with you. Let it be Layla, Safia, and Inga. But be careful, don't stray far from the camp. If something goes wrong, come back right away.
Nala nodded, confidently assembling her group. The other girls, watching their interaction, began to see this as an organized system that was gradually turning into a society. For them, Kofi became not just a leader, but someone who was able to listen, understand, and direct. Over time, the girls began to rely more and more on his decisions. If someone felt lost or didn't know how to handle a task, they turned to Kofi for advice. He tried to help everyone, gave instructions, but did not become a despot. It was important to maintain a balance between leadership and freedom of action for each member of their new society. Kofi understood that his position as a leader was not just a matter of survival, but also psychological support. He tried to talk to each girl, to find out how they cope with difficulties, what fears and doubts they have. It was especially hard for those who lost their relatives in the disaster. Kofi knew that their morale was also important for survival. One evening, when the day was coming to an end and everyone was gathered around the campfire, one of the girls, Zama, started talking about what was bothering everyone.
Kofi, do you think we have a chance to be saved? We have been here for so long and there has been no sign of salvation or the outside world. I'm afraid we're here forever.
Kofi looked at her. It was a question that often swirled in his mind, but he tried not to show his doubts.
I can't give an exact answer, but I believe that as long as we are alive, we have hope. We must continue to fight and not give up. Salvation can come at any moment, but until then we must do everything possible to preserve our strength and survive.
His words brought tears to some of the girls, but most nodded in agreement. They understood that Kofi was telling the truth, and although it was scary to think about the future, they knew that without his leadership it would have been much more difficult for them. Over time, as life on the island became more organized, the girls began to offer their help to Kofi in everything related to survival. They saw how much effort he put into making everything work, and felt that he was not just guiding them, but really taking care of each of them. Some of the girls began to perceive him not just as a leader, but as a defender, a person who cares about their well-being. They began to offer their help not only in carrying out survival tasks, but also in supporting Kofi himself. Someone brought him food, someone helped him with clothes or gave him advice on improving shelters. They saw him as their support, and this feeling of respect gradually turned into trust. But despite all this, Kofi began to feel internal pressure. He understood that, as a leader, he was responsible for all these people, and this became a heavy burden for him. He tried to hide his doubts and fears, but sometimes when he was alone, the thought that he might not be able to cope consumed him. One evening, when everything was calm and most of the girls had already gone to bed, Nala approached Kofi. She noticed that he had become more withdrawn and thoughtful lately.
You're straining yourself a lot, Kofi. We all see how much you do for us, but you need to rest too.
Kofi sighed, lowering his head.
I can't afford to rest. Until I'm sure everything is safe and everything is going as it should, I can't just relax.
Nala looked at him carefully, her gaze full of sympathy.
We all trust you, and this is very important. But you don't have to do everything alone. We are all here together, and we can help too. You don't have to take all the responsibility alone.
Kofi nodded, realizing that Nala was right. He realized that his leadership was based on mutual support, and that if he did not accept help from others, he could break down under pressure.
I know. Nala, thank you. I will try not to forget about it.
These words were a reminder to Kofi that his leadership is not only about control and guidance, but also trust in the people with whom he found himself on this island. In the following days, he began to delegate tasks more and rely on those who took the initiative. Nala and Zama became his main assistants, helping him coordinate the work of the group. Together, they made sure that order was maintained on the island, so that everyone had food, water, and shelter. Life on the island continued to improve. The girls began to perceive Kofi not only as a leader, but also as a mentor who helped them survive in this difficult situation. His leadership qualities, confidence, and care became the foundation of their new society. They respected and trusted him, knowing that he would always make the right decision and lead them out of any difficulty. Over time, a sense of community and support began to form on the island. Every day was full of challenges, but they coped with them together, thanks to the efforts of Kofi and those who helped him. As life on the island became more orderly, the relationship between Kofi and the girls began to transform. It all started with simple duties and tasks aimed at survival, providing shelter, getting food and water, maintaining a fire. But as the structure of their small society grew stronger, the relationship began to take an unexpected turn. From the very beginning, Kofi has been a pillar of support for the girls, their leader and mentor. He took responsibility for the distribution of tasks and the leadership of the group, which allowed everyone to feel more confident and secure. However, over time, the girls began to perceive him not only as a leader, but also as a person to whom they owe their survival. They began to see him as more than just an organizer or a senior among them. In their eyes, he has become something of a hero who helps them keep hope alive during this difficult time. Gradually, each of the girls began to offer their help to Kofi in carrying out his daily tasks. Someone made sure that his clothes were always clean, someone brought him food, someone prepared a place to rest. Initially, it seemed like an innocent expression of gratitude, but over time it became something more. Some girls, especially those who were initially the most scared and lost, began to look for a defender in Kofi, not just a leader. They saw in him a man who could ensure their safety, and sought to support him in everything. Some girls offered to be his constant assistants, others were engaged in organizing his leisure time, others tried to please him in any way, just to earn his favor. Kofi, although grateful for all the help he received, began to feel some inner discomfort. He never aspired to such a role. He was just someone who took responsibility when no one else could do it. Now he felt that his position as a leader was taking on a different, almost hierarchical character. The girls began to see in him a figure that they must protect and support at all costs, and not just a member of their team who cares about the survival of the group. Every day his life was getting more and more attention from the girls. They brought him fruits, treated his wounds, and even did everything possible so that he would not waste his time on household trifles. Kofi tried to reject some of these proposals, insisting that they were all equal and should work together. But the girls were persistent. They told him that he deserved it, that without him their society would have disintegrated, and that he should let them take care of him the way he took care of them. This attention from the girls became a new challenge for him. He began to feel a certain distance between himself and the others. The girls increasingly perceived him as someone who stood above the rest. They were willing to do any job for his approval, or even a passing attention. An internal conflict began to develop inside Kofi. On the one hand, he understood that such a relationship structure arose naturally. It was a manifestation of gratitude and a desire to support the leader. But on the other hand, he felt uncomfortable in this role. He didn't want to become someone who everyone sees as an unattainable figure. He was worried that the girls began to perceive him as something more than just a man who happened to be on the same island with them. Over time, many girls began to act not only out of gratitude, but also out of a desire to be closer to Kofi. They sought to gain his attention and favor, offering him their services that went beyond the usual responsibilities of survival. Some of them were willing to do anything to please him and become special to him. This was a new challenge for Kofi. He was aware that such a relationship could lead to tension among the girls. They could start competing with each other for his attention, which could destroy the fragile harmony that they had worked so hard to build on the island. Kofi did not want any disagreements and conflicts to arise between them, but he had already seen how some of them were becoming jealous of each other because of his attention. Another difficulty for Kofi was his own attitude towards it. He felt responsible for all the girls and did not want to give preference to one person. But at the same time, he began to realize that some of them had really become closer to him. He noticed their efforts and could not remain indifferent to it. Sometimes, when the day was coming to an end and all the girls went on vacation, Kofi was left alone and reflected on how his life on the island had become so unusual. He wondered how he managed to end up in a situation where 500 girls depend on him, take care of him and see him as something more than just a leader. It was difficult for him to accept this fact, but every day he felt more and more the weight of responsibility that was placed on his shoulders. Kofi understood that he could not afford to show weakness or give cause for disagreement among the girls. He was the leader they had chosen, and now not only their survival depended on him, but also their morale. Any display of sympathy or preference for one of them could lead to the destruction of the relationship that they had all been building together for so long. However, despite all these fears, Kofi could not completely hide his feelings. It was difficult for him to remain neutral when he saw how the girls tried for him, how they showed care and attention. He felt gratitude and respect for each of them, but at the same time he realized that his inner conflict was deepening. With each passing day, Kofi became more and more withdrawn, trying to avoid situations in which girls might feel that he was singling out someone alone. He knew that his position as a leader required him to be wise and careful. He tried to maintain harmony and balance among everyone, but it became more difficult as the girls became more attached to him. In his heart, Kofi understood that his relationship with the girls on the island was taking a strange and unusual turn. He was not prepared for such attention and care from so many people. He just wanted to be a part of the team, not someone who everyone protects and looks at with admiration and expectation. These thoughts continued to torment him as the days on the island passed one after another. Kofi tried to find a way to deal with this new reality without destroying what they had built. He understood that any of his actions could have an impact on the entire society they had created, and this made his situation even more difficult. As a result, Kofi came to the conclusion that he needs to continue to be the leader that girls see him as. But he also knew that he had to find a balance between not letting his feelings interfere with their relationship and not losing those who believed in him. With each day that passed on the island, Kofi became more and more immersed in thoughts about his life. Despite the attention and care of the many girls around him, he was beginning to realize that he was missing something. It seemed to him that the life they had barely established on the island was devoid of the sincerity that he had always sought in relationships with people. Yes, he was surrounded by care, he was respected. Girls offered their services to make his existence easier, but this did not bring Kofi inner satisfaction. Deep down, he always dreamed of love, a real, sincere connection with another person that would not be based on status or dependence. However, on this island, where the girls saw him as a leader and savior, the relationship with them seemed superficial, albeit saturated with attention. This attention has become a heavy burden for him. Gradually, he began to realize that the privileges that his position brought him could not replace real feelings based on mutual understanding. At first, he tried to ignore these thoughts. It seemed to him that there were more important tasks: survival on the island, maintaining order among the girls, ensuring their safety. But the longer he lived on the island, the stronger his inner feeling of emptiness became. He felt lonely among a lot of people, surrounded by attention that would not let him rest. He saw gratitude, admiration, and even a desire to be something special for him in the eyes of the girls. But this was not what he really wanted. Kofi began to look for someone with whom he could share his thoughts and feelings, who would understand him as a person and not as a leader or hero. He wanted real intimacy, not just physical presence. It was important for him to find someone with whom he could share his fears and doubts, who could understand him more deeply than others. But on the island, where all the girls looked at him as something unattainable, it was not so easy. It took several weeks before Kofi began to notice that some of the girls were really different from others. Some of them did not seek his attention so persistently, did not try to please him at every step. He began to pay more attention to their behavior, trying to figure out which of them was sincere in their feelings and who could become the one he was looking for. Kofi noticed one of the girls named Zama. She was quiet and calm, didn't strive to be around him all the time, and didn't seem to need his approval as much as the others. Zama was one of those who did not stand out from the rest, but her demeanor and calmness attracted his attention. She was always busy doing things, helping other girls, but she never tried to be the center of attention. Over time, Kofi began to notice that Zama has not only external modesty, but also inner strength. She was independent and self-confident, but at the same time remained attentive and caring to others. He saw how she helped other girls, shared with them what she had, and demanded nothing in return. Her behavior was completely different compared to how other girls tried to please him or get his attention. Kofi began to approach Zama with various requests, wanting to get to know her better. He saw that she treated him with respect, but at the same time did not see in him only a leader or a savior. She perceived him as an equal, as a person who also needed support and understanding. He admired it. In her, he found the simplicity and honesty he was looking for among the many girls around him. Kofi started spending more time with Zama, talking to her alone. They discussed not only life on the island, but also their dreams, fears, and hopes. He felt that he could be himself with her without playing the role of leader or savior. Zama, in turn, was open and sincere in her answers. She wasn't trying to impress him, she was just being herself, which was a real revelation to Kofi. Over time, their conversations became deeper. Kofi began to realize that Zama was not just one of the girls on the island, but a person with whom he could share not only his days on this piece of land cut off from civilization, but also his life. She didn't look at him as a hero who needed to be protected or served. She saw him as an equal, and that attracted him. He felt better when he was with her. She did not expect anything supernatural from him, did not require special attention from him. This was an important moment for Kofi. He understood that he had found in her the person who could give him what he was looking for: sincere, true love based on mutual understanding, and not on external circumstances. Kofi began to realize that his feelings for Zama were deeper than for the other girls. He wanted to be with her, not because she was beautiful or attentive, but because she understood him like no one else. He felt that next to her he could be real, without pretense and pressure from the outside. Zama also began to realize that Kofi had special feelings for her. She noticed how his gaze softened when he looked at her, how he was looking for an opportunity to spend more time with her. She did not seek his love, but her own feelings for him also began to grow. For her, Kofi was not only a leader, but also a person who cared about everyone, while not forgetting about simple human needs and emotions. One evening, when the two of them were sitting by the sea and watching the setting sun, Kofi felt that the moment had come to admit his feelings to himself and her. He knew that this was an important step and that this relationship could become something special for him. He could no longer hide the fact that a real feeling of love for Zama had grown in his heart. This moment was for Kofi the realization that the love he was looking for had finally found its place in his life. All the privileges and comfort that his position on the island gave him could not replace the sincerity and intimacy that he found in Zama. She became for him not just a part of their society on the island, but something much more the kind of person with whom he could share his life. Their relationship grew stronger every day. Kofi no longer doubted his feelings. He knew that he had found someone who could give him not just attention or care, but also true love. Zama was for him the light that illuminated his path in this difficult situation. She became an anchor for him, which kept him afloat in a world full of uncertainty. Now that Kofi has found love among the many girls on the island, his life has taken on a new meaning. He no longer felt lonely or lost among so many people. He found someone with whom he could share everything, both joys and difficulties. After a few months on the island, life began to take on a new order for Kofi and the rest of the girls. Kofi was still the leader everyone relied on, but increasingly it seemed to him that something was missing in his life. Despite the support, attention and care from the girls, Kofi began to feel an inner emptiness. He was missing something important, something deeper than just leadership and survival. Many girls on the island saw in Kofi not just a man who helped them survive, but something more. They tried to please him by surrounding him with care, fulfilling requests and tasks, not letting him stay alone. But among all these expressions of attention, there was not what Kofi was looking for: a sincere connection, real understanding and intimacy. One day, on a typical day, when the group was picking fruits and fish for lunch, Kofi noticed one girl who kept herself apart from the others. It was Zama. Unlike the others, she never sought to be the center of attention, did not try to impress or please Kofi. She was busy with her own affairs, helping other girls, but always remained calm, confident, and independent. Zama didn't need the approval of Kofi or others to feel confident. She did not seek to be his servant, like many others who saw it as a way to gain his favor. Her independence and calmness caught Kofi's attention. He began to notice her more and more often, not because she was trying to get his attention, but because she stood out for her intelligence and kindness, which was lacking in a world where everyone was fighting for survival. Kofi began to approach Zama with questions and requests, asking her thoughts on the organization of the camp, the distribution of tasks, and the improvement of life on the island. In these conversations, he began to realize how smart and insightful she was. Her advice was wise and practical. She helped Kofi see the situation from a different angle, offered solutions that did not always lie on the surface. Over time, they started spending more time together. Kofi genuinely enjoyed their conversations, which had no place for flattery or pretense. Zama wasn't trying to show her best side, she was just saying what she thought, and her honesty attracted him even more. She was one of the few people on the island who didn't see Kofi as a hero or savior. To her, he was an ordinary person with whom one could talk on equal terms. Gradually, their relationship began to develop. Kofi noticed that it was easy for him to be himself with Zama. He did not feel the need to play the role of a leader or maintain the image of who others saw him as. With her, he could talk about his doubts, fears and worries without fear that he would be misunderstood or judged for weakness. Zama was kind and attentive to everyone, but at the same time she always remained independent. Kofi respected her for that quality. He saw that she did not need his protection, but at the same time she was ready to support him in difficult moments. This was something new for him, because up to this point he was the one who constantly supported others, who solved their problems and took full responsibility. One evening, as they sat by the sea and watched the sunset, Kofi realized how important Zama had become to him. Their conversations, which began with discussing ordinary things, gradually turned into deeper topics, They talked about life, about their dreams, about what they would have wanted to achieve if they hadn't ended up on this island. Zama shared her thoughts about the world, about people, and Kofi felt that he had found in her a person who understood him on a deep level. Over time, Zama became for Kofi not just a friend and advisor, but also someone much more. He began to realize that he had found in her what he had been looking for so long, a real connection based on mutual respect and trust. Her kindness and wisdom, her calmness and independence became a source of strength for him. Kofi noticed that he was thinking more and more about Zama. When she wasn't around, he missed her. He began to look for an opportunity to spend more time with her, to talk about what was bothering him, about his inner struggle with responsibility for life on the island. Zama was the kind of person with whom he could be himself, without having to hide his emotions and feelings. Zama, in turn, also began to realize that their relationship with Kofi was becoming more than just a friendship. She saw in him not only a leader who was respected by everyone, but also a man with deep inner feelings and doubts. She respected him for being willing to take responsibility, for his wisdom and ability to lead, but she was attracted to more than that. She saw in him someone with whom she could share her life, despite all the difficulties. Their relationship developed naturally, without pressure and expectations. They supported each other in difficult moments, shared their thoughts and feelings, and gradually something special arose between them. Kofi realized that he had found in Zama the one he was looking for, a person who understood him like no one else. Zama did not seek to take a special place in Kofi's life. She did not need to be his chosen one or singled out from the rest. She was just there for him when he needed support, and that meant more to Kofi than all the privileges and attention he received from the other girls on the island. Her presence filled his life with the meaning he had been looking for a long time. Kofi began to realize that his feelings for Zama were getting stronger. He could no longer hide from himself that he had found in her not only a friend, but also his true love. She was the kind of person with whom he could build something more than just a survival relationship. In her presence, he felt alive, real, free from the roles that society had assigned to him on the island. The time spent with Zama was becoming more and more valuable to him. He felt that their relationship had already gone beyond the usual friendship or mutual respect. Kofi understood that in her eyes he was not just a leader or a savior, but a man who deserved love and support like anyone else. Now that his feelings for Zama had become obvious, Kofi wondered how their relationship would develop further. He knew that their relationship would be an important stage in his life, especially in the conditions they were in. On an island where life was full of uncertainty, Kofi found in Zama the support that helped him not only survive, but also feel happy. Zama, understanding Kofi's feelings, could no longer deny that their relationship had become something more. She saw in him a man who not only cared about others, but was also capable of loving. Their mutual understanding and support became the basis for a future relationship that promised to be strong and sincere. Thus Kofi found his true love on this desert island among many people. He found not only physical survival, but also emotional and spiritual satisfaction in his relationship with Zama, which promised to be a source of strength and inspiration for him for many years to come. The months spent on the island have changed the lives of everyone who ended up here after the disaster. What once seemed like a chaotic struggle for survival has gradually turned into an orderly existence. The island became their new home, albeit temporary, and every day was filled with work and worries about living in conditions that seemed insurmountable. However, for Kofi and Zama, these months have been a time of personal discovery, growth and understanding that their feelings for each other are much more than just a temporary attraction or necessity. Kofi has been struggling with internal conflict for a long time. He was the leader of the group. He was respected and revered for his wisdom and determination, but it always seemed to him that this status separated him from the rest. He was afraid that because of his position, people saw him not as a person, but as a figure they could rely on, but with whom it was difficult to build a real, sincere relationship. However, with Zama, everything turned out to be different. She saw him not as a leader, but simply as a person who could be understood and supported, with whom she could build relationships based on trust and mutual understanding. When their feelings became obvious to both of them, Kofi and Zama decided not to hide their connection. Their relationship developed slowly and cautiously, as it had from the very beginning. But now that they realized that this was not just a temporary infatuation, but a real, deep love, they decided that it was time to build their new life on this island together. They knew that their connection was important, not only for themselves, but for the whole group. Kofi, having the leadership qualities and support of all the girls on the island, was well aware that openly acknowledging his feelings for Zama could cause certain reactions among the others. He knew that it was difficult for many girls to come to terms with the fact that they could no longer count on his attention the way they used to. However, he also understood that continuing to hide his feelings would be unfair to them and to Zama, who deserved to be with him not only as a friend, but also as his companion. When Kofi and Zama announced their relationship, it became an important event for the whole group. Some of the girls were surprised, but most took it with understanding. They saw how Kofi and Zama were gradually getting closer to each other, and they understood that this was inevitable. Zama stood out from the rest for her independence and wisdom, and many respected her for this. Kofi, in turn, was always honest and open with others, which helped to avoid misunderstandings. Gradually, the girls began to perceive the relationship between Kofi and Zama as something natural and right. They saw that their union was not based on power or status, but on sincere feelings and mutual support. Kofi did not use his leadership position to win over Zama, and this earned respect among the others. Their love has become a symbol of the fact that real feelings do not obey status or circumstances. With each passing day, the relationship between Kofi and Zama strengthened. They started planning their new life on the island, no matter how long they had to stay here. Together they decided that, despite all the difficulties, their love would give them the strength to cope with any challenges. Kofi and Zama did not expect salvation as something inevitable. They decided to build their lives on the island as if they would stay here forever. This decision brought them both peace of mind and confidence in the future. Together they were engaged in organizing everyday life on the island, improving living conditions not only for themselves, but also for the whole group. Kofi continued to carry out his duties as a leader, but now he felt that there was someone next to him who understood and supported him. This gave him the strength and inspiration to continue caring for others despite all the difficulties. Zama, in turn, helped him not only mentally, but also physically. She took over some of the worries about the allocation of resources, the organization of labor and the maintenance of order. Life on the island gradually began to take on the characteristics of a stable and organized community. Kofi and Zama became important figures in this new social structure, but at the same time they remained people whose relationships were built on trust and mutual assistance. Their love did not arouse envy or jealousy among the others, because everyone saw that it was a union of two equal people, and not a game of status or power. The girls, who previously could see in Kofi the object of their admiration or desire for power, now realized that his connection with Zama was based on something that went beyond leadership. It was a deeply personal and sincere feeling, and it could not be destroyed by external circumstances. Moreover, their love became a source of inspiration for the whole group. Kofi and Zama have shown that even in the most difficult conditions, you can find love and support. Over time, a strong community developed on the island in which everyone supported each other. Every girl has found her place and role, and the relationship between Kofi and Zama has become a symbol that even in isolation and difficulties, happiness can be found. Their union has helped to build trust and mutual assistance among all. Kofi continued to be a leader, but now he was a leader whose personal life was part of the common good. He was not above the rest, but just someone who found his love and built a new life with Zama. Their life together on the island has become a new page for everyone. Kofi and Zama continued to develop their relationship, make plans for the future, and support each other in all endeavors. They farmed together, built new shelters, improved living conditions, and created food and water supplies. Now they were not just surviving, they were building their lives, which, despite the external circumstances, was filled with meaning and love. Gradually, their love became part of the island's shared history. The girls began to respect them even more, seeing that the relationship between Kofi and Zama is not just the result of their leadership or status, but a sincere feeling that arose in difficult conditions and stood the test of time. Everyone saw that their union helped them both become stronger and wiser, which means it was a blessing for everyone. Kofi and Zama accepted that their life on the island could go on for a long time, and this no longer caused them anxiety. Together they decided not to wait for salvation, but to build their lives here and now. They knew they could handle any difficulties because they had each other's support and love. Over time, their relationship became even deeper and stronger. Kofi found someone in Zama with whom he could spend his whole life. Despite all the trials, he no longer felt lonely or lost among many people, because there was someone next to him who understood him like no one else. For Zama, Kofi became not just a leader, but also someone who shared every moment of life on the island with her. She saw in him a man who was ready to fight for their happiness and build a new life, despite all the difficulties. Their story became an example for everyone else. Kofi and Zama proved that love can overcome any obstacles and that true feelings do not depend on circumstances or status. They showed that even when you find yourself on a desert island, you can find happiness and meaning in life if you have a person next to you who loves and supports you.